So lovely to be here. As Doreen said, so I am from Vegetarian for Life, which is a UK charity, and it's actually the only charity, as far as I'm aware, that does exactly what we do. So we were set up 11 years ago with funding from the Vegetarian Housing Association, and our resources are solely there to support older vegans and vegetarians and people that cater for them in later life. So as Doreen said, there's some interesting statistics sort of globally, a lot of growth in meat reduction, vegetarianism and veganism, especially around Europe, even Australia, America, but interestingly, South Africa as well. We're starting to see sort of hints there. So this is against the backdrop of there being a globally aging population. So there are more people now aged 60 or older than there have ever been before. Having said that, so scrolling down a social media feed or picking up a magazine, you might get the impression that veganism or vegetarianism or meat reduction is perhaps a younger people's thing. So if you look at a standard sort of campaigning photo that's quite recent, what do you notice about the diversity of the people there? But particularly from my perspective, what about the age representation? As we've seen from Mali, you know, vegetarianism and veganism isn't a new thing in any stretch. So I thought I'd take us back in time a little bit. And what do we actually start to notice? So actually, there's a little bit of age diversity going on here. And there are even references to vegetarianism in the book Frankenstein. So even though I think we'd get the picture if we just scroll through a social media feed or a magazine, that it's younger people that are leading the way, I think there might actually be a bit of ageism going on in the movement. I think the Assisted Living Federation of America has a good overview of ageism, but it summarizes really nicely that most seniors are mentally and physically active, no matter how old they are, have a great deal of skills and experience to contribute, but are they actually made to feel unwelcome in our movement? I'd really hope that's not the case, but it's something I'd hope to address today in this talk. The last thing that you'd want is for someone to come to your meeting and think, oh, it's not for me because everybody's of a certain age. So what can we actually do to address that and make use of all those years of skills and experience? So certainly in the UK in 2014, the UK Vegetarian Society commissioned a survey. So it took over the British Social Attitudes Survey and it wanted to look at attitudes towards meat reduction in the general population. I normally have quite a younger audience in this, so this is really refreshing. But it usually surprises people that older people in that survey were more likely to describe themselves as meat reducers, vegetarians or vegans than younger adults. And it's quite staggering because the difference was twice as many people in the 65 to 79 group would describe themselves as either a meat reducer, vegetarian or vegan, compared with people in the 18 to 24 bracket. So again, that's very much worth thinking about. I'm hoping this video is going to play, but I want to introduce one such vegan, and this is Ray, who'll tell his own story. Hopefully. It plays. If it doesn't, I can talk you through it.
I've been vegan for over 20 years now, and I'm proud of the choice I made all those years ago. But as I get older, I wonder about how my circumstances may change. I want to be sure that my choice to remain vegan will be respected right to the end of my life. If I go on to develop dementia and need care, I'm afraid that I may lose my identity and may struggle to assert my veganism. So I thought how I might help define my identity and be sure my wishes, beliefs and commitment to veganism continue to be fulfilled. Heinrich is a vegan tattoo artist. And today he is going to help me create an indelible reminder of the way I want to live the rest of my life. Well, thank you, Amanda. That's been much more comfortable than I thought. I really want to say thank you. I'm very impressed with that. Thank you so much for helping me on my journey.
It was my pleasure to do this one. Thanks a lot for you as well to coming down, and hopefully this will inspire you to spread the message and get it to more people.
Cool. Thank you.
So I usually play that to groups of care caterers, and I think it actually gets across just how strongly people feel about their vegan, vegetarian identity. And obviously Ray there is not alone in being concerned about what should happen if he loses capacity in the future and is no longer catering for himself. What's actually going to happen to his diet and his beliefs for all of those years? And he's certainly not alone. I've had conversations with probably several hundred, if not into the thousands, of older vegetarians and vegans over the years. And it's always this same issue. If I get dementia, will I be served meat? Now, there are over 300,000 older vegetarians and vegans in the UK at the moment. Most of those are still living independently and, you know, quite active. But there is a percentage of those that are already living in care homes. So in the UK, we have about 6,500 already in UK care homes. And in our capital, we have about 40,000 vegetarians and vegans in total. But, and here's the big but, so there are only 2 fully vegetarian care homes in the whole of the UK, as far as we're aware. And they're in a very specific part of the UK as well. So out of all of those hundreds of vegetarians and vegans that I've had the conversation with, again, usually it doesn't happen. When people are at their most frails, they don't really want to move across the country. So while that might satisfy some people that already live in that area, for the vast majority, the likelihood is, should you enter care in the future, you'll be in a mixed care home. So people that are eating meat are among you. So does that actually work? So with that in mind, I want to hopefully show another video and show you Serena's story. So this is from BBC Two television from the 1970s. And Serena Coles, who's being interviewed, was a vice president of the Vegan Society back in the 70s. I might have to click on play myself.
This is Serena Coles, one of our vice presidents. She's been a member almost from the beginning of the society, and she's a medical social worker. Tell us something of your experience.
Well, I became a vegetarian in 1943 during the difficult days of the war. And in those days we knew nothing about B12 or many of the other things that we now have. Soon afterwards I realized that I wanted to become a vegan because I suddenly knew that so much cruelty was involved with dairy produce.
And I believe you also brought up a son as a vegan.
Yes, my son was born in 1945, and I maintain, rightly or wrongly, that this was partly because I had improved so much in my own health that I was able to conceive.
So as you can see from that clip, Serena was really articulate, did really well to be vice president of the Vegan Society back in that time. Now, people that were involved in sort of animal rights campaigning around the same time as Serena actually lost contact with her and just wondered what had happened to her. They did manage to track her down. This was in the 1990s, and at that time she did sadly have dementia, and she was living in a care home for that. Sadly, the care home was feeding her meat and dairy. Now, one of her first visitors was wearing a Vegan Society lapel badge, and Serena was very able to say, "Oh, vegan, I'm a vegan," and that's new. So again, I think there's a lot of work that we need to do with the care sector just to sort of educate around this. So we have been working on a campaign for the past few years, just helping both individuals to assert their vegetarian or vegan identity in the future, but also really to educate care caterers who will be catering for us in the future. The statistics around dementia are quite shocking. You might already be aware of them. Certainly it's quite prevalent in UK newspapers about the rates that we have there. So every 3 seconds, someone in the world is developing dementia. So it's a real problem that we need to tackle. So as part of the education that we do with the care sector, we first of all just have this sort of conversation with, is someone with capacity loss really asking for meat? Because most of us would be aware, if you live in a vegetarian or a vegan household, you might not actually describe in full detail what you're going to have for dinner. You might not say, oh, I'm going to the shop, shall I buy some vegan cakes? What should we have for dinner? Should we have vegan quiche? Would you like a vegan sausage? I think we drop the vegan label. So it's always fair to sort of explain to the caterers, well, it's highly unlikely they've reflected on their beliefs while they're in a care setting and thought, do you know what, I don't want to be vegan anymore. And you can sort of sense the penny dropping when you even just have that conversation. There's some really interesting but quite depressing research around this as well, and in terms of how easy it is to maintain any form of identity when you enter a care setting. So this is research by Katie Paddock, who spent a lot of time in UK care homes, and she was sort of just seeing what happened to an individual's identity throughout their stay in a care setting. And quite often you're not even necessarily getting your same clothes back to wear after, you know, all of the laundry in the care home's been done. So again, it's asserting to care homes, the finding from this research, residents need more support to assert their identities. So we launched in January something called a memory care pledge, and we were fortunate that one of the first care homes to actually take a pledge was a winner of an award called Care Establishment of the Year. So this is Nick Dutton just talking about what his care home's done.
I'm Nick Dutton from Primrose Bank Care Home in Colton-le-Fylde. We joined the V4Life UK list about a year ago because we noticed a lot more vegetarians and vegans coming into our care home. We're now more than happy to make a pledge to help people maintain their ethical beliefs, especially around vegetarianism and veganism as they get older, even if they suffer any memory issues. We're also making a pledge to create a vegetarian champion from one of our vegetarian members of staff who will help keep the conversation going around the care home on the benefits and beliefs of a vegetarian or vegan lifestyle. We're also making a pledge to keep reviewing our menus, especially around our vegan and vegetarian options, to keep them fresh and exciting.
Very inspiring too. So for anyone that wants to read more about the pledge, because we're limited to sort of 20 minutes here, there is a page on our website just about that. So Nick did mention something called the UK list. So 11 years ago, we did launch this concept of having something called a UK list. So it's basically a directory of UK care homes that have pledged to cater well and ethically for older vegetarians and vegans. So membership is now up to over the 1,300 mark, which we're really pleased with. So we do have members such as Nick, who's been talking to camera, as you'll have seen. And the idea is that anybody could look on our website, type in whereabouts they are in the UK and find care homes that have actually either made a memory care pledge or just pledged more generally to cater well and ethically for vegetarians and vegans. So it's very much a work in progress, but we've been building and building on that. We can also help with chef training. So something that we thought was useful to have was something called a roving chef scheme. So we have roving chefs in Scotland, in the north and in the south of England, and we're soon to expand. And one of them is Maggie.
Hi, I'm Maggie, one of the roving chefs for V4Life, and here you can see we do one of the activities which are free for residents. We're here at Sutton Coldfield Bracewells for one of the activities today, and I'm going to be doing tasters with the residents. We've got the fortified smoothies, we're going to be doing creamed mushrooms and scrambled tofu, using ingredients that vegans know about, but obviously if you're a meat eater or you eat dairy, it might be a bit unusual, so it's just to give people a taste of other options that could be available to them. If you're interested in this, then you can get in touch on our website at vegetarianforlife.org.uk. Hi, I'm Maggie.
Another thing that we found useful to set up is a grant scheme. So, like I said earlier, the vast majority of older vegetarians and vegans are actually well and healthy, and probably, like most of us, want to stay in their own homes for as long as possible. So we set up a grant scheme. So we have both a vegetarian fund and a vegan fund, which are to just help people with simple things that actually really improve the quality of their life. So this is Maz in his brand new mobility scooter, and mobility scooters are actually really, really popular, and we give out a lot of those through the grant scheme. A few years ago as well, we thought that there really needs to be some sort of pat on the back to care homes that are actually making the effort. And it can feel like a special effort if you're catering for just one vegan or vegetarian in your care home. So we set up annual awards for excellence in vegetarian care catering. And again, you can find out more on there. But we were fortunate also last year for the first time to be given a room in Parliament to hold them in. So again, it's a lot easier to actually get people to come to Parliament for a prestigious award than it would be at like a town hall or something like that. So again, that's really seeming to inspire people. Last but not least, so in the UK, we have a lot of so-called all-party parliamentary groups, which could be on any sort of subject, really. So in December 2016, we decided to try and set up an all-party parliamentary group on vegetarianism and veganism, and it is active. It has several peers and members of parliament on board as officers, and the membership is always growing. We're very soon going to launch an inquiry around loss of capacity and people being fed foods that really don't represent their philosophical beliefs. So that should launch in October. So again, that's one to watch. So that's all very well. We're quite established. We're now 11 years old. So what can you do as both an individual to assert your own vegetarian or vegan identity? And if you're part of a group, what could that group do? So certainly the first thing I'd suggest, so we set up a template statement of wishes, which is available on this page of our website. So the idea behind that is it's completely free to fill in. You can write on it, if I ever lose capacity and seem to be asking for meat, please give me mock meats or dairy alternatives. There, you've said it. You couldn't have been any clearer. So that's something, again, that you can lodge with your GP, with your doctor. So that's on your medical notes. Do obviously update it, because there might be other things that you're passionate about. But again, just make it as clear as you can. We don't want this to be complicated. So that's the link to that. If you are of the more confident variety and are happy to go into places that cater for older adults, especially if you're of an age where you could realistically be looking for care facilities for a loved one or your parents, just suss out what their menus would be like at the moment. There's this whole thing around care homes that it's very much a closed door situation. So it's harder to campaign in care homes than it would be perhaps a high street restaurant, because you can clearly see the menu of a high street restaurant. Whereas, you know, these people don't necessarily get that much challenge. So if you do feel confident, you don't have to book an appointment. You can just go in and sort of pretend to be a mystery shopper and just hold them to account, just see what they say. We've produced a number of resources. So again, if anybody, it's going to be very culturally different depending where you are, obviously. So we found a common problem was that suppliers of meals that are delivered to your home, so that's called Meals on Wheels in the UK, really aren't very broad in terms of especially having a vegan offering. So you might have perhaps 2 vegan offerings in the leading suppliers in the UK. Factor in you're having your meals delivered. One you're going to choose for your breakfast or your lunch. One's going to be your dinner. It's not really much rotation, is it? Because some people have sadly lost the ability to prepare meals for themselves. So that's one sort of guide that we produce to help with that. But we do have others that might be more relevant, certainly in a European country. So things like a catering guide, which has got menu plans in for a month. It's got both vegetarian and vegan menu plans. Got a vegan rescue pack. So all of these things are downloadable on our website if you sort of want the inspiration. We have a couple of organised schemes in the UK, not by ourselves, schemes such as meal makers. So that takes volunteer cooks and people in the community that would benefit from having a meal cooked for them. So the idea behind this is that if you're someone that likes to cook, you can cook an extra portion of what you're having, and that could be dropped off to a vegetarian or a vegan neighbour. And ideally, you'd sit there and share that meal with that person. You get some really good stories out of it. But if you're more shy and just want to do the cooking, I'm sure they'd absolutely love the home-cooked meal. Again, in the UK, there are a couple of firms, I don't mean to single these 2 out, but these are sort of leading suppliers of meals that are delivered to people's doors. So again, it's that customer pester power, actually saying, are you aware you only have 2 vegan options in your range? So again, just making that difference and contacting people in your country, or if you don't actually know what the situation would be like, just doing a bit of research and asking whether they do plan to launch any more vegan items. Penultimate slide. So if you are part of a group, does your group need to be more inclusive? So for example, if you organise events, are they always done via Facebook or social media? Certainly not everybody is on social media, and I think you find that certainly over the age of 80, fewer still people use social media. Some absolutely do, but are you leaving some people behind? Can you organise different types of activism? So again, somebody in their 80s or 90s might not want to do so much street campaigning, especially in the middle of winter in the UK. So could they get involved in letter writing campaigns? Or if they have the internet, could they get involved in emailing or other activities that suit them? And also, do you have everybody's phone number? Would you be willing to just pick up the phone to people that don't have social media and invite them to your events? I think you might just find that if you reach out, you'll get a handful of extra people coming to your events, making a bigger difference, and you never know, you might just get the best volunteer you ever had. So that's all from me, but I'm very happy to take questions in the tent next door. Obviously, if anybody here has been inspired and would like to do something specific to their country, I'm very happy to take a mailing list just to see if that's something that we could work with in the future.